As mentioned, there are 4 find methods that we can use in order to pull the data from a database, and in this video we'll cover the ones that are limited to returning a single database entry at most, and those are findById and findOne. As the name itself suggests, the findById method will first instruct the database driver to search the database for a record with the provided ID. If the record exists and the data was retrieved successfully, the method will create a new instance of the model on which it was called, populate it with the received data, and finally return the instance. So if we call the findById method on our book model here like so, it would query the database for the book record with the provided ID and return a new instance of the book model. And on the other hand, if the record wasn't found or the provided ID is invalid, the method will return null. The cool thing about it is that calling it multiple times with the same ID will not make multiple database calls, as the model instances are also stored in an internal cache before they are returned. This essentially protects us from making redundant database calls. The next method in line is the findOne, which gives us a bit more flexibility when it comes to performing database queries. Although it is still a method that is limited to returning a single item from a database, instead of a simple ID, this one accepts an object as its first and only argument, which can contain a couple of properties. Most importantly, to specify the actual data filtering we want our database driver to perform, we define the query property in it and assign the query object as its value. For example, to retrieve a book with its title set to first book, we would assign the following object to the query property. Internally, the same process is happening as in the seen findById method. The database driver will query the database, and if data was returned, a new book instance will be created, populated, and finally returned. If we take a look at the console, we can clearly see that's the case. On the other hand, if the database query didn't return any data, like this query would do, we would get null, which we can also see here. Upon calling the findOne method, in some cases we might also need to instruct the driver to apply specific data sorting when performing the actual database query. For example, if we wanted to return the book that is first in terms of the alphabetical order, we would call the findOne method like so. As we can see, the object that is assigned to the sort property contains the title equals 1 statement, which basically specifies that the sorting should be applied on the title column, where number 1 specifies that it should be done in ascending order. So right now in the console we can see that the title of the book that was returned is first book. And if we wanted to fetch the book that's last in terms of the alphabetical order, we would just replace the 1 with -1, and sure enough, we can see that the title of the book is now second book. And those were the findById and findOne methods. As mentioned, they are limited to returning one result at most, so if we were in a situation where that's not enough and we needed to work with a list of results, we'd have to use the find method. Let's see how it works in the following video.